Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery. So this morning I'll be going through a short discourse on walking meditation. So we can start by paying homage to the Buddha, and then I'll start going through the sutta. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Saṅghaṃ Namasami. So the discourse we'll be looking at today is from the Anguttara Nikaya, so chapter number 5, sutta number 29. So this is called the Chankama Sutta. And this is a sutta that's relatively well known in monasteries. But I found it's actually not terribly well known outside of monastic environments. But it's an important sutta to keep in mind. So the Chankama Sutta, the word Chankama means walking meditation. So this is a sutta on the benefits of walking meditation. And I remember many years ago when I was living at Abhayagiri, my preceptor, Ajahn Prasanno, he said that it seems that forest monks are the evangelists of walking meditation. And he said because there's lots and lots of people who do sitting meditation every day, but who very rarely do walking meditation. But that it's very important to do both. If you just do sitting all the time, then that's usually doesn't get particularly good results. So it's important to do both sitting meditation and walking meditation. So the sutta, it's very short, so we might go through this relatively quickly. So just a reminder ahead of time, if you have questions, you can type them in at any time, and I'll go through whatever questions there are at the end. So the sutta begins. Panchame bhikkhave chankame anisangsa. So this means there are 5 benefits in walking meditation. So anisangsa is the benefit or the advantage. So I actually get the sense that the Buddha, in the context of the sutta, that the Buddha had probably also noticed that people were doing lots of sitting meditation and not much walking. So it's kind of giving people a reminder of the value and importance of walking meditation. So he says, Katame pancha. What, 5? And the first one, adhana kamo hoti. So adhana kamo, the word adhana means journey or traveling. And the word kama means to endure something, to tolerate something, to accept something, to be able to bear or put up with something. So it's from the root ka, which means to hold or to endure. So one of the first benefits of walking meditation is that if you do a lot of walking meditation, then it makes your body stronger, makes your body healthier. And in terms of traveling, particularly at the time of the Buddha, the standard way of traveling was to walk everywhere. If you were a little bit more well off, then you might be able to afford a horse or another animal that could carry you around. But most people would walk. And actually, this has been the case throughout the majority of human history. If you wanted to get somewhere, you had to walk. So being able to endure long periods of traveling meant that you had to be able to walk for long distances without getting worn out. So, for example, recently, together with Ayasoma and a couple other monks, we did a period of wandering in the countryside of Italy. So walking for 25 kilometers a day. So if you're not used to walking, then even walking 5 kilometers feels like a real struggle. But once you get into it, because it's the ability to walk long distances it's partly a function of your physical health, but it's also a function of the power of your meditation practice. So this word kamma, it means to endure something, not just in a physical sense, but also in terms of one's mental capacities. So the extent of one's equanimity, the power of one's mindfulness, the ability that one has to accept physical sensations. So sensations of exhaustion, sensations of hunger, of thirst, sensations of pain. So being able to put up with the experience of the body without falling into mental despair. So through walking meditation, we're training the mind to be always in a state of mindfulness and equanimity when we're walking. We're training the mind to be clearly aware of the experience of the body, but without reacting negatively to any of the sensations that arise. So, of course, this applies for traveling by walking, but actually traveling in general tends to be a rather uncomfortable experience. Anyone who's been on a very long plane trip, for example, can probably relate to how difficult it can be. So just sitting still in an airplane for 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, this is something which can be very hard on your body, can produce a lot of difficult sensations in the body. But through walking meditation, one can develop the ability to be clearly aware of one's bodily experience and not disturbed by it. So this is one of the really significant benefits of walking meditation, is that it helps you be able to travel more effectively. Walking meditation also builds up the quality of persistence, because you have to keep walking back and forth with your walking meditation. You have to just keep going with it. So that also builds up this quality of mind that allows you to just keep going, no matter what your body feels like, no matter how tired you are or how much you'd rather do something else. You just keep going. So this also is a very important quality for traveling. So particularly these days, you can, in just a few hours, you can be all the way on the other side of the planet, and then you have to endure jet lag. So the ability to keep pushing yourself forward, even when you feel really, really tired or really exhausted, is really beneficial in those situations. So this is a very practical benefit the Buddha gives for walking meditation. It makes it easier to travel. The second one, he says, padhana kamohoti. So padhana means striving or exerting effort. So in the suttas, the word padhana usually refers to putting forth a lot of effort into one's meditation practice. So, for example, doing long periods of sitting meditation, or meditating late into the night, or getting up very early in the morning. And here, again, the connection is not always immediately apparent. But this is something which, coming back to our recent time of wandering in Italy, this was something which became really clear to me. So you would think that walking 25 kilometers a day, only eating one meal a day, you'd think these are conditions which would make it really difficult to do a lot of sitting meditation. But actually my experience was the opposite. My experience was one of every day I'd wake up very early in the morning and the mind would be bright and fresh. And I could do 2 hours of sitting meditation starting at before dawn. And it's totally fine. The time just flew by. Like there was a sense of there wasn't anything wrong here. And similarly, throughout the wandering, we would stop periodically throughout the day to do some sitting meditation in the forest. And again, there's a sense of lightness and ease that comes from doing so much walking meditation. So during this period of wandering, of course, we were walking many hours every day. But it wasn't like just hanging out with your friends and chatting about sports, but rather it's long periods of walking meditation. So focusing on your body, focusing on your feet, focusing on cultivating mindfulness and equanimity as you walk from place to place. And so this makes it a meditation practice. So that then when you do sitting meditation, it's you've already been cultivating the same qualities of mind for many, many hours of walking. So then when you go to do sitting, it's much easier to put forth effort. It's much easier to strive. The other thing is that when you do a lot of walking meditation, it tends to clear out any restlessness in the body. So often a struggle for many people in sitting meditation is they have a hard time sitting still. And often that difficulty in sitting still is coming from the fact that the body has energy and the body wants to move. So the nature of the body is to be active. And actually the average person these days is half dead compared to what humans have been like for the past few thousand years. So throughout most of human history, people have been very active. So all day long, moving around and working and doing things. And then in recent decades, people have become increasingly sedentary. But our bodies are still engineered for lots of physical activity every day. So then when one goes to do sitting meditation, the body still has the sense that it needs to be doing something. It needs to be active. So it's constantly producing physical energy, but it has no outlet for it. But if you do lots of walking meditation, then you can release that physical energy so that then when you go to do sitting meditation, your body feels much more tranquil and settled and at ease. The third benefit the Buddha gives here, he says, appabado hoti. So appa abada. So abada means illnesses, diseases, physical problems. So if you do a lot of walking meditation, then you'll have few illnesses. You'll have fewer physical problems. So again, the Buddha is being very practical here. He's pointing to the fact that the human body, again, it's designed around activity. It's designed around doing lots of physical activity every day. And this is one of the critical parts of keeping our bodies healthy. It's actually not particularly healthy to just sit around and do nothing all the time. So if we're constantly keeping the body active, then that helps to promote physical health. It helps to keep the body healthy. And when the body is healthy, then that tends to support our meditation practice. So anyone who's ever tried to meditate when they were really sick can attest to how challenging it is. And it's actually quite difficult to meditate well when you're sick. So it's important to make some effort to keep our body healthy. So recognizing that physical health is not a guarantee. In fact, sickness is inevitable. The decay of the body is inevitable. So we do need to accept that, come to peace with the fact that sickness, decay, and death are just natural parts of bodies. But recognizing that through taking care of our health, that helps to support our meditation practice. And also it makes it possible for us to engage in strenuous practice. So if you're just laying around sick all the time, then it's difficult to do meditation retreats. It's difficult to go wandering. It's difficult to do much of anything. So here again, the Buddha is emphasizing that if you do plenty of walking meditation, it helps to keep your body healthy so that you have fewer obstacles to your practice. Though again, it's important to point out that walking meditation is not the same as exercising. So people all over the world, people exercise, but what are they doing while they're exercising? Or they're listening to music, or they're thinking about random things, or they're chatting with their friends, or they're spacing out. But walking meditation is meant to be a practice of focusing the mind, of training the mind to be completely present. So it's although it has some similar effects to exercise, that's not its primary purpose. I remember many, many years ago, before I was a monk, I was at a meditation retreat. And one of the lay teachers. So one of the lay teachers there was talking about walking meditation. So we were doing like periods of sitting meditation and then short periods of walking in between. And the teacher said that the walking meditation was just to stretch your legs a bit between periods of sitting meditation. And I remember being so disappointed. I was like, that's it? It's just to stretch our legs? That's all there is to it? But then a while later, there was another teacher who was talking about how walking meditation is to create a continuity of practice, a continuous flow of mindfulness and equanimity that isn't dependent upon any one particular position of body. It's about training the mind to be in meditation at all times, no matter what position you're in or what activity you're engaged in. And that had the flavor of Dhamma. That rang true to me. So walking meditation is about learning how to extend our meditation practice into all of our activities. Then the fourth benefit that the Buddha mentions, he says, asitang pitang kayatang sayatang samma parinamang gacchati. So this means that whatever one eats, drinks, chews, and swallows, so anything that you consume, will be digested correctly. So again, he's talking here about one of the basic physical benefits of our practice. So when you engage in walking meditation, it helps to support all of the health of your internal organs. So another problem that often comes up during meditation practice is the sleepiness and dullness that comes from undigested food in the stomach. So many teachers will recommend after you have your lunch, then do some walking meditation. Even just a few minutes of walking meditation, instead of just going directly to taking a nap. So not that there's anything wrong with napping per se, but rather that if you do some walking meditation first, then that first off, it helps to remind you to maintain mindfulness and equanimity, but also it can support your digestion process. And supporting that digestion process, again, it's not just for the sake of the body, but rather it's because then that makes it easier to stabilize and focus our mind. So the dullness and haziness that comes from undigested food in the stomach is an obstacle to concentration. It's an obstacle to mindfulness. So it's important to pay attention to what affects our digestion and to try to keep our body's digestive process working correctly. So again, a very practical thing. So the Buddha, one of the things that's really noticeable when reading the suttas is how practical the Buddha was. So of course, the Buddha had many very interesting things to say about the transcendent capacity of the human mind. Very many interesting things to say about spiritual awakening. But he also had a lot of very simple, practical advice to give. Simple things about how to live our lives in a way that conduces to happiness and serenity. Then the fifth benefit, which in my opinion is the most important of all five of these, the Buddha says, Chankama digato samadhi chiratitiko hoti. So chankama, again, means walking meditation. Adigato means attained or reached. Samadhi is the unification and stabilization of mind. So samadhi practice is one of the really critical elements of Buddhist meditation. It's learning how to unify and stabilize the mind. So the word samadhi is usually translated as concentration, which is a reasonable enough translation. I know there's some translators who don't like to use this word concentration, and fair enough. It's not the best word, but it's good enough. But yeah, the word samadhi means to collect together, to unify, to keep the mind steady and collected. And it's important to point out that samadhi is dependent upon mindfulness. So without mindfulness, then your samadhi will be incorrect. It will be miccha samadhi. So you can have a state of mind where the mind is very peaceful, very unified, but also very dull and hazy. And that's what we call miccha samadhi, wrong samadhi, incorrect samadhi. Whereas samma samadhi, correct samadhi, is when the mind is unified and stable, but it's also bright, clearly aware, fully knowing of its experience. So, and the Buddha says, Chankama Digato samadhi, so the samadhi that one gets through walking meditation, chiratitiko. This means it remains stable for a long time. It stays for a long time. So some of the best experiences of samadhi that I've had were after doing a extended period of walking meditation and then going to do sitting meditation. Because the samadhi that develops during walking meditation, it's often not so apparent until you go to sit down afterwards. And the mind much more quickly and easily settles into this bright, alert stillness. So often during sitting meditation, so maybe you're doing an hour of sitting meditation, and the first 30, 40, 45 minutes, it's just about trying to settle down. And then finally, the last few minutes, you're finally starting to get into some actual samadhi, some actual concentration, and then the bell rings and it's over. It's like, well, okay, at least I got a little bit of samadhi. That was good enough. But if you do walking meditation, then that helps to cultivate, again, a continuity of mindfulness and equanimity, a continuity of stability and presence of mind. So that then when you go to do sitting meditation afterwards, the mind is already prepared. So you've already cleared out that preliminary phase, that preliminary 30 or 40 minutes of trying to settle and focus the mind. So since the mind is already settled and present and focused, it's much easier to enter into samadhi more quickly and easily. So that's usually the most visible, the most readily recognizable benefits to one's samadhi is doing sitting meditation after a period of walking. But also during walking meditation, especially long periods of walking, if you're really making a strong effort to focus on the feeling of your feet, really, and it does take effort. So I remember years ago, someone was complaining. They were saying that they're like, oh, sitting meditation just kind of does itself, just does it by itself. You just sit down and the mind gets peaceful and clear. And they're like, but walking meditation, it's so difficult. And it's like, yeah, you actually have to put in some effort. You also have to put in some effort with sitting meditation, by the way. But with walking meditation, you really have to put effort into making it a meditation practice. If you just walk around and let your mind space out and drift, then that's not walking meditation. It's not anything at all. But if during walking meditation, you really make a strong effort to focus on the feeling of your body, to keep the mind from wandering, to keep the mind sharp and clear and stable, then you can develop samadhi while walking. And especially if you're doing long periods of walking, like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, then the mind can enter into a very powerful state of concentration, to where no stray thoughts disturb the mind, to where the mind is not shaken by any sensation, by any sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch. Nothing seems to disturb the focus and stability of the mind. So again, this is something which is only noticeable through direct experience. So if you've never done long periods of walking meditation, like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it's worth a try. See what happens. But once again, it's important that you really make an effort to focus on your body. Don't let the mind drift or wander. And afterwards, do some sitting meditation and see what it feels like. Notice how much more strong and steady the mind is after a period of walking meditation. So then the Buddha concludes, he says, Ime ko bhikkhave pancha chankame anisangsati. So monks, these are the 5 benefits of walking meditation. So that's the end of the sutta. So at this time I can take any questions or comments that you have. So we can start by saying 3 sadhus to respect the sutta. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And I see lots of people joining in. So hello to all the people who are checking in. And I see a few questions. Let's see here. So Rahulawad says, early morning, also physical activity recommended by the Buddha. Walk in nature to nearby village and humbly receive food offerings if given, and then walk back with some weight. Yeah, so this is the practice of almsround. So this is another element of monastic practice in particular, which is to do almsround. So to take one's bowl and walk into town and see if anyone wants to give you food. And so almsround is a practice of walking meditation and standing meditation, as well as the practice of metta. Actually, I find that for me with almsround, my main practice is metta. So cultivating a genuine sense of kindness and compassion towards everyone that we encounter. And it's such a beautiful experience to be part of this open-hearted giving and sharing. That metta practice comes up very naturally in those conditions. And Anonymous asks, when doing walking meditation, do you focus your eyes downward towards your feet, not looking around, looking straight ahead, etc.? I wouldn't recommend looking at your feet. The usual recommendation is to look down at the ground about 2 or 3 meters ahead of you. But yeah, not looking around. Like whenever you move your eyes around, that tends to also move your mind around. So keeping your gaze steady and unmoving tends to also cultivate a steady and unmoving mind. So you do also need to be practical here. So when crossing a street, you should still look both ways and make sure there's no cars coming. But even then, as you're looking around, try to keep your mindfulness and equanimity strong. Try to keep your mind steady as you're looking around. So don't let the mind wander with your eyes. Looking straight ahead is possible, but it tends to be a bit more difficult because then the mind tends to go blurry. So again, looking about 2 or 3 meters ahead is what's usually recommended. But you can adjust the distance that you look ahead. But still, it's you want your eyes to be cast down at least a little bit. Another important thing with walking meditation, by the way, is to keep your body still as you walk. So not waving your arms, not gyrating your torso, not moving your head, but try to keep your body completely still from the waist up. So that it's really just your legs that are moving. This makes a huge difference towards developing concentration with walking meditation. John says, do you have a good resource for learning walking meditation? I mean, there's countless. Just look online for Theravada walking meditation or something, and you'll find countless resources. And there's lots of different styles and techniques for walking meditation. So I recommend trying out a few different ways and see what works for you. And also being flexible. Being flexible in the sense of trying out different styles, but also being able to switch between different styles depending upon what's helpful. So sometimes walking very slowly will be helpful. Sometimes walking very fast will be helpful. Sometimes walking a short distance back and forth is helpful. Sometimes walking a very long distance is helpful. So being willing to do different things depending upon what's helpful to your cultivation of mind. And Amneris, hello Amneris, says, can you explain a walking meditation session? The practice I'm doing is Sirimangalo, but it's very rigid. Do you have any suggestions? So the style of walking meditation, which I personally prefer, is to choose a walking path around 20 to 30 paces long and walk slightly slower than a normal walking speed. So walking almost at a normal speed, just a little bit slower, maybe 10% slower. And just focus on the feeling of your feet as you walk. So very simple. So not doing any noting practice in your mind. So not doing any mental thinking, any verbalizing in the mind. Just focus on the feeling of your feet. And when you get to the end of your path, pause for a couple of seconds, slowly turn around, pause for a couple of seconds. And again, when pausing, just focus on feeling your body as you stand. And then start walking back. So very simple practice, just mindfulness of your feet. And you can actually walk faster. So a bit faster than a normal walking speed can also sometimes work. But usually I find a bit slower than normal walking is the best for me. But yeah, if you have a way of doing walking meditation already, and that way of walking meditation doesn't feel right to you, doesn't seem to help you, then do something different. Change it up. Go faster, go slower, use a different style, a different technique. It's important that our practice be very flexible and adaptable. If we're stuck in just doing one thing all the time, then our practice is not capable to, it's not possible to adapt. And Amnara says, right, left is too much. By right, left, do you mean like when the right foot comes down, you think right? When the left foot comes down, you think left? If that's what you mean, then that technique is fine in the beginning. But if you notice that your mind is starting to become settled and stable and aware, then try to drop the words and just stay with the direct experience. So the practice of thinking right, left, as you walk, that's useful when your mind is very distracted and spacey, or when you have a lot of thinking going on, or if you're not feeling your body clearly, then that like noting of right, left, that can be a good way of bringing you back. If you want to use some kind of mantra with walking, you can actually do lots of things. One that I commonly use is metta. So with the right foot, met, the left foot, ta. So as walking, it's like metta, 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 metta. And I notice that really helps to soften the mind with walking meditation. Makes the mind very gentle and peaceful. If you like death contemplation, there's also ways of incorporating that into your walking meditation. So one which Ajahn Brahm teaches is with, as you're walking, you're thinking one step closer to death. So as you're walking, that can be fun. So feel free to play with your walking meditation, experiment with it and see what works. And that's the last question from online. Are there any questions from the monastery residents? Anything? No? So we can go ahead and end the session at this time with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you next time.